You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/ARTS. Just go to Indeed.com/ARTS right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
You're listening to Heaving Bosoms, the podcast where two best friends recap romance novels while encouraging pals to see if they can lick their own nipples. It's just helpful information to have.
Gonna love what we love, do it out loud. Stack our shelves with the clinches out. Shout it from the rooftop, can you hear the sound? Yeah. Live your best life, love it out loud. Love it out loud.
Hey HBs, don't forget to block off this Friday evening for our watch party. We'll be watching Howl's Moving Castle together on February 21st at 8 p.m. Eastern. I can't wait. When we left off yesterday, the Duke had just realized he's fully and madly in love with his unlikely courtesan. Meanwhile, Belinda had just rebuffed a literal emperor in favor of going home with Hawkscliff, but has kept some physical boundaries in place. Also, Dolph the Creep is still on the loose, and there's a murder that needs to be solved. Like a maybe murder. All right, let's jump back in. So when they get home, because he was fully being like, we're obviously having sex. It's gonna happen. And he's a little bit confused about this hesitation that she's showing. And he wants to like go back to the same bedroom and snuggle and stay close. But he can tell that like there's something sort of weighing on her. And so they do this really sweet goodnight and they both go to their separate rooms. And when they're saying goodnight, he says, Belle, when? And she says, soon. And then they both go to their separate bedrooms.
And now it's dinner party time.
So now she throws this dinner party for all of the fancy, stuffy bros who are only kind to other rich people.
And Coldfell, that weasel, found out about this Tory dinner party and invited himself because he wants to see what this Belle is. He's like, she's taking too much attention away from both my nephew's murder and my daughter's marriage.
Yeah, like, he's like, it seems like she's fucking up Operation Toy Soldier, and I'm really super not into it. Also... he's the only guy.
Toy Soldier.
Yeah.
She
Also,
does. That is, he winds him up and just lets him go. Oh my God, I love that. Okay, continue.
And he's the only guy I trust with my deaf daughter, you know? Like, he's the only guy I trust to treat her well. So, like, I need to get this Cyprian out of here. Oh my God. And he's...
But then, after this dinner party, importantly... It starts off real hot, and then it gets real sad, listener. Trigger warning,
Woof.
we're about to have a sexual assault flashback. Because everyone leaves. The evening is a resounding success. People are like, yeah, we'll totally talk with you about the stuff you want to talk about in Parliament, because boy, that food was good, and boy, that lady was charming.
Yeah. And so they are still in the dining room, and he's like, you are a fucking star. You just put on the bet. He's like, you're the hostess with the mostest.
Mhm.
And
now
think
it's
that
time
you
for
deserve-
dessert.
Yeah, we have to have dessert. And he has a bowl of whipped cream and some cherry tarts. I don't know what sound. Nothing sounds better,
Oh my
frankly.
God, Melody. I had the most amazing adult experience the other night.
Yeah?
I went to the orchestra for the symphony for my birthday.
Yep.
And I got home and I was hungry, but I wasn't really hungry. And I looked in my fridge because one of my good friends came up on my for my birthday weekend and helped me clean out my fridge. So I know that everything in there, that sexy bastard helped me
Fair
clean out my
game.
fridge for my birthday.
Yeah.
And I opened my fridge and right in front of me, I couldn't decide what I wanted to eat, but I did see an unopened can of whipped cream. And so I
Hell
did just grab
yeah.
that can of whipped cream and we just hung out for a couple of hours and I just every once in a
Yes.
while. That's just what I ate for dinner or like second dinner because
Yeah.
I'm an adult. And if I
Yeah.
want to eat whipped cream straight out of the can for my second dinner of the evening,
That's your
allowed.
prerogative.
That is my prerogative. Although now I'm kicking myself because I should have made a sexy time whipped cream. I don't know
You
why I
should have
didn't
put it on a
consider that.
nipple. Yeah.
I should have put it on a nipple. But to be fair, it's harder for me. It's not impossible for me to get whipped cream off of my nipple.
Okay.
But it is harder. It is easier to just it right into my mouth.
I mean, obviously. Yeah.
So
At least you
no
can like
regrets.
lift your boob up to your mouth. I can't even get, I can't get them close to each other at all.
Hypothetically, somebody with bazingas of a certain size,
Of a certain with a certain gravitas.
of a certain oomph,
Yeah.
might be able to suck their own whole nipple, including
Yeah.
areola, into their mouth because bazingas are big,
Well, when they
theoretically,
are a certain
hypothetically.
magnitude. Yeah.
when they have a certain gravitational pull.
Sure.
Yeah. Hypothetically. Shout out to all you big booby bitches out there.
That's right.
If you've never tried to stick your own nipple in your mouth, you should give it a shot. Hypothetically, you should give it a shot because, why not? You can say that you did it.
It's like trying to see if you can lick your elbow. You can't. I've heard that it's not a thing people can do. I'm sure
Realistically, you can't lick your elbow, but hypothetically,
but maybe you
might
see.
be able to lick a nipple.
Confirm or deny. So anyway, he has her sat up on this table and he's putting whipped cream all over her and then licking it off. And it goes from 0 to full on, he climbs on top of her on the table. And so this is the first time that she's having consensual penetrative sex. And he's but he, again, doesn't know the lengths of her innocence. He's not been able to get a firm answer out of her.
Well, and also even she was in it. She was in it to win.
Oh
it.
God, yes. Oh, she is so in love with him and connected to him, and they're both riding this high of this successful night, and they did it as a team. And so this is just the pinnacle of that experience. Oh God.
Fucking on the dinner table means clanking of silverware, which sounds an awful lot like a clanking key ring. And so she gets triggered and she starts to now, instead of it being reassuring and warm having him on top of her, it's terrifying
cloistering.
and scary and awful. And so she pushes him off and he stops and poor dude.
And she's sobbing. And he's like, what happened? Did I hurt you? She can't even make words, really.
Well, because she doesn't want to admit it to him anyway.
No. And so it gets to the point where he's trying to figure out what's going on. And he's grasping at straws. He's throwing out options. And he's like, oh my God, it's because you want more money, isn't it? You're stopping me in the middle of the act before I come because you want me to give you more money.
And she launches on it because she would prefer him think that than know the truth.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, you're right. That is it. Sorry, bud. This isn't an our agreement.
Well, and not only does she not want him to know the truth, but this icy facade is one of the only things she has to protect her right
Yeah.
now. And so she
Oh, I
immediately
feel
gets behind those barriers.
And I understand her. I understand where she's coming from
Yes.
and why she did this, but I was so sad for him.
I know, because he's
'Cause, like-
mystified
Well, and he's so
and so
then
hurt.
and he feels used
Yeah.
and rejected after this, and he's like, "Oh
Yeah.
my God, was all of this a lie? Like, she doesn't actually
Yeah.
care about me." And he's like, "All right, it's time. We're confronting Dolph. I'm done." Like,
Yeah.
Dolph reaches out to him, and they're headed to meet Dolph. And they get to this weird little house on
That Dolph
a road.
suggested. Yeah. And
Mhm.
also, before he told her that, like, this is the plan, we're going to go do this, he says, and then after that, you're free to go whenever you please. At your earliest convenience, I think he says. And so she is realizing that, like, she really has lost him. She has absolutely pushed him away. But she wants to fulfill the promise that she made to him because she loves him still, right?
Yes.
And so she's on this horse going to this creepy little cottage in the middle of goddamn nowhere. And Dolph is there. He comes, oh my God, he comes out of like a shadow in the doorway.
You
And he's
made it.
Oh, hello, welcome. And they end up going inside. And Dolph is like, almost like, I need to inspect the merchandise.
Yeah.
So Hawk is like, okay, you can go chat or whatever you need to do. Hawk is thinking idiotically that Dolph is going to be like, hey, so you're cool with this, right? Like, you consent to coming with me now?
And
That's
she's
not what Dolph
open
is
to
doing.
that. And so she goes
Well,
with Dolph
that
into
is
the other
verbally. Yeah, no.
The
Yeah, so
agreement.
verbally, yeah. Because she has to wind him up a bit to like show him that she is within his reach.
room. Mm-hmm.
But then he goes from just gross to
Recording
more
another
predatory.
Sexual assault, listener. Like, it's
Yeah.
not to fruition, but he's definitely on the way. He's got her up against the wall, and then we zippies out. Basically, Hawk is like, it's been awful quiet, and they've been in there long enough. So he goes in and sees what's happening, and he's pissed off. And so he does grab her down, pulls Dolph off, and we end up finding out Dolph was Lucy's lover.
Well, because wait,
This is her love
that's a bit of
shack.
a cool it. Hold on. We got to kind of roll it out a little bit because because going from one to the other is very confusing. How the fuck would we find that? Like, we have to tell them how we found out. So he pulls him off of her, gets her behind him, and he's like, "You know what? This is the last fucking straw. You're done. You're going to tell me what you did to Lucy. Like, this just proves to me that you are a fucking woman murderer."
You're right. This is very important.
Like, it was almost like he was pulling a rabbit out of his hat the way that you said it. You know, it's like I was getting ice cream and now there's a rabbit out of my hat.
I'm just so ready to get to a certain point of this book.
I know. So anyway, he's like, and so Dolph is like, "What are you talking about? I killed Lucy. I was fucking Lucy. Why would I want to do that?" And they're both, I mean, he's like, "You're lying." And he's like, "This was her cottage. This was her love shack. I wasn't the only one." Yeah, I was not the only one that she was bedding. Look around and you'll find proof, I'm sure of it. I haven't really touched anything since she died. And then Belinda finds a whole book of sketches. And it is all of
the
men of
young-
the ton.
Yep, it's
just
all the young
naked.
toffs of the ton.
Yeah, their dicks are
Drawn
all
like
over it.
One of your French girls.
Yes, absolutely. And so Dolph is like, "You didn't know her. You were her mark." And Belinda's trying to figure out like what the subtext is in what Dolph is saying, because Dolph isn't really connecting the dots for them either. He's just saying that, like, you were her mark, you were her ultimate goal to become your duchess, and she was having sex with me and like everybody else, and that was just Lucy. Like, it sounds like you just didn't know Lucy. So now he's having this existential crisis that's like, his angel was not the whole time, and can he trust his own judgment at this point if for the whole relationship he's shitting on this turns out really innocent Cyprian courtesan, and then he thinks that like the pure, beautiful, just perfect example of womanhood is the one who's like dicking everybody down all over town. So he's really confused. And then Dolph finally is like, I'm gonna be magnanimous because you did bring me my obsession. I'm gonna forgive you for how you did just accuse me of murder. Normally, I would call you out for that. That's something that a gentleman would call out for. But I'm gonna be cool, and I'll just take Belinda and go. And then he's like, no, you're not leaving with Belinda. And Dolph is like, what? That's what we said. That was our agreement. You said. And then Hawk looks at him and says, I lied. And Dolph's world now is dissolving around him because the paragon of honor and ducal goodness lied to him and manipulated him. So he's like, you know what? It is duel times. Yeah, it is duel times. Get your second.
So we're going to zippy zap before we even get to the duel.
Yeah.
He is in his office. He is going to do the duel because he's an honorable son of a gun.
Yes.
And she decides she has to confess to him the truth of what happened because she doesn't want him to do this duel without all of the facts. Like she's like, there's no reason for you to do this duel because I'm not worth it.
Well, not to mention that, like, I think her biggest thing is he's willing to lay his life down for me. I can tell him my deepest, darkest secret.
So she does. She goes down there and oh God.
He's being such an asshole to her at very first.
Yeah. And she's like, I have to tell you something.
Yeah, I have to explain. I didn't want money. I haven't wanted money this whole time.
Yeah. So she reveals to him. She tells him all about the history, about like the money, and she tells him everything that happened. And oh my God, the minute he starts to realize where she's going with this, he is so sad. Like she's crying. He's on the verge of tears. He wants to go hold her, but she clearly doesn't want to be held right now.
Yeah, he just doesn't know. Oh.
And oh my God, he is so full of rage and regret. Everything makes sense now. All of this makes sense. He knows why she became a courtesan. And so she says to him at one point, because he's holding her in his lap. She finally let him touch her. And he picks her up after she's done telling her story. And he's holding her in his lap and letting her cry. And she says, I can't lose you, Robert. Forfeit this duel. Men don't duel over demi-reps. And he says, you are more to me than that. And I will prove it to you. And she's like, but by risking your life, like, what the hell? Like, I don't want to lose you. Stay with me. Love me, Robert. Make me whole again.
Oh,
and
my God.
I love him so much because his response is, I will, my sweet, but not tonight. Not like this.
Not with Dolph still in your brain, and not with like just on the heels of telling this story for the first time.
This, and she's like, but tonight might be all we have if you go through with this. Don't do it. And he says, have faith in me. I don't deserve you yet, but after I've dealt with the men who hurt you, then maybe I'll be worthy of that gift. And then he strokes her face and he says, oh, my sweet girl, who could ever hurt you? And oh God!
It's
and then he's
beautiful. Then he does
he's petting her. Well, hang on. Before he gets to the roofie, we got a little bit more sweet. And he says, "You were so brave tonight," stroking her hair. "If I had known, I would never have put you through that. Not in a million years." And she says, "I know. This whole plan to use you as bait for Dolph, it was so wrong of me. Why did you let me do it? I had to keep my word. I wanted to show you I was brave. Oh God, you always do, Belinda. Ballast in your hull, my girl." And then he asks if he should play her a lullaby. And she says, no, stay with
me.
And he says, I'm here. Poor angel. You've been carrying this burden on your shoulders all this time by yourself. And then he does roofie her. So it does.
He
does
Does
roofie her with
roofie her.
laudanum to put her to sleep.
Well, because he's got shit to do. He says he is going to take care of every single man who has failed her up until this point. And so first he goes to the prison and he tells kooky dad everything that happened, the consequences of his actions. Because this whole time he's been like, this fucking guy.
God.
Like, this guy is so irresponsible and so cavalier about the fact that he left his daughter on her own with no protection whatsoever. But so yeah, he obliterates this guy's whole world. And then he gets intel on where that warden is. I was for sure there was going to be a murder that happened. But no, he just grabs the warden. He does kidnap him. He does beat him to death's door.
He beats the shit out of him in an alley.
With a lead pipe. And he's kicking him and he's like kicking his face in and it's a whole thing. And he makes sure the warden knows that like I'm doing this on behalf of Belinda Hooseltown. And then he's like, I really kind of want to murder this guy, but I don't really want, I know that Belle wouldn't want that on her conscience. But he looks over because he's real close to one of those bodies of water that are around England.
So instead,
He puts him on a ship to Australia.
he sticks him on an
Outlaw boat.
It was awesome. Well, and like we all know, he's gonna die on that boat because some of those prisoners are gonna recognize him.
Yeah, absolutely. Once the swelling goes down, you know what I mean? They're totally going to recognize him. So...
And then he does. He goes to the dually place. It's duel times with dude bro, with fuck face.
Yeah, with Dorcas. And so they get their seconds and they do the whole thing. What?
Just you and Dorcas.
Did I say Dorcas? God damn it.
You did.
What's his name? Dolph. Dolph.
fine.
Okay. So anyway, they do the duel. She gets to be there. And she's like, this is one of the benefits of being a lowly courtesan instead of a lady. Because, like, I get to do whatever the fuck I want. And I'm at this duel. So I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I did Sherlock Holmes this part.
I did not Sherlock Holmes this at all.
Yeah.
I knew he had to live, though, because, listener, we're at like 65% of the book.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't know how this book flows as well as it does because
Seriously.
we're only like 220 pages in. I was like,
Yeah.
what do you mean there's more book?
Yeah, I was like, we're slaying the dragon that we've been setting up the whole time. I don't understand. We're doing the thing that happens in the climax of this book as I have read it up until this point.
So they do the shooty shoot.
It wasn't, wait. I do have to tell you, it was not impressive that I Sherlock Holmes it, all right? Because he walks up to her and he takes his flask out of his pocket and he drinks it right in front of her face. And then he does put his flask back in his breast pocket. And then he goes to do the duel. So, like, the signs were there and they were neon.
Listener,
It's all
basically
there.
what Melody is doing right now is telling me that I'm a fucking blind idiot.
No, I'm not. How dare
Mhm.
you? I am
You just
not.
said that all of the signs are there and flashing neon lights and
Well,
all of
Because the other thing is that this is a thing that happens in historicals. This is a microtrope that happens in historicals. The Stephanie Lawrence book, this shit happened too with his flask.
Melody.
I'm sure of it.
I'm aware that this is a microtrope, and the minute it happened, I knew I
You were
was like,
like,
wow, I can't believe I didn't
"Microtrope!"
see that coming. So
Anyway,
it's
I'm
fine.
making fun of me, not you. Regardless, they shoot each other and both of them go down. And so she runs out there to Hawk and she's like, "Oh, are you okay?" And she's like undressing him and the surgeon is there. And they figure out that
He's
the
fine.
flask,
He's
the
gonna
flask
be
did
bruised.
stop that bullet. Yeah. But then he looks
you
at
want to know
Alec.
who didn't have a flask?
Wait. This is my favorite part, though. This is my favorite part because they're like nonchalantly walking back to their horses. And he looks at Alec and he's like, "Hey, so how's Dolph doing?" And Alec goes, Oh, he's dying. like as if it was no big deal whatsoever. He's just like, this is old news. We're about to leave. So they look over and Dolph is on the ground spitting blood and like, you know, holding his chest or whatever. And she's like, Hawk, I need to go and comfort him because I'm a good person, even if he doesn't deserve it.
Yeah. And she goes and talks to him.
He does the most incel thing, though, because he's like, I loved you in my way.
Yeah, God. He's awful.
And then the uncle comes over because part of Operation Toy Soldier was that Hawk was going to make sure Coldfell got there for the duel so that he could witness it, right? So Coldfell's been there the whole time, and he like basically comes over to gloat over Dolph's, you know, warm corpse.
Death.
But yeah. But Dolph is still like spluttering, and he looks at Coldfell and he's like, I started the fire in your house.
'Twas I
who
started the fire.
Yeah. And Coldfell's like, I know. And so now Belle is like kind of putting more pieces together. She's like, I know that he didn't say everything when he was telling us about Lucy. And now he's admitting to burning down this guy's house, which happened before Lucy died. And everything's in her mind, but she hasn't put her red string board together yet, essentially. So they end up going back to the house, and they're just like snuggling, semi-dressed. It's really sweet. They're just doing a big snuggle on each other. And he's basically telling her that he loves her and he never wants to be without her ever again. He's like, stay with me, because this morning is August 1st, the last day of their agreement, of their 2-month agreement. And he's like, stay with me. I can't live without you.
Yeah. And it's a whole thing. There's a really cute back and forth, though, where she says, I love you too, Robert. I shouldn't, but I do. And a wide smile spreads over his face. And then he says, shouldn't? Yes, you should, you little cocklebrain. You shouldn't love me. What bad form. Why shouldn't you love me? Which is adorable, but also not great because they've already discussed, like, I still won't marry you, but, like, what a little cocklebrain.
Yeah, because he promises her forever. And she goes completely still. And she's like, Robert, what are you saying? And he realizes, like, oh, fuck, that could be taken as, like, forever is marriage. And so he's like, I can't. And she's like, no, I know. And he doesn't want her to get mad and, like, leave because she was hoping for marriage. And so she's like, I wasn't angling for it. I know that it's not possible. It's fine. But she doesn't understand what forever means, and he can't explain it to her, essentially. And then he decides that they're going to go to the country house.
They decide to go to the country house, but before they go to the country house, he's like, I have a surprise for you. And he takes her with him. He rented out all of Almec's.
Oh my God.
Including the orchestra, so she could go to Almec's. And so they're at Almec's, and it is romantic and swoony.
They're dancing
all
night.
Oh, it's wonderful. And then they go home and make love. And it's just, my heart was singing. But then they decide to go take a break, get out of town for a little while, partially because Jacinda has been suspended from school for Dolph reasons from the past, that he's now dead, but whatever, because Dolph was going to use his sister against him, and that's fucking gross, because Jacinda's like 17 years old.
Yeah.
So they got to the country, and it's adorable. Like, everyone's getting along. Everyone is just, the girls love her. They're so excited to see her again.
They're passing her off as the girl's governess, which is hilarious.
And Belinda is seeing a lot of women that are like, like mamas who are like, the Duke's back in town. It's time to, get in on that. And she's seeing what her life is going to be like if she stays as his mistress. This is never gonna end. And she's still decided that when he gets married, because eventually he's going to, she's leaving. She will not be a mistress to a married man.
Right. Meanwhile, he is thinking, I have to get married, and she knows that. And so what I have to do is just convince her to, like, drop her very last moral. The only one that's left.
What an asshole. God, he's awful.
I just have to make it worth it for her. So they're blissfully happy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then while she's out with the girls climbing a bluff or something, he sees Kooky Dad coming up on a horse. And the dad has taken this like 4-day trip to come and tell him that he needs to marry his daughter. Period. The end. And like, that's what she deserves. And that's what you should give her. And Hawk is like, I can't do that. I absolutely can't do that. They have this back and forth. And then finally he gets to talk to Belinda, and after like she tells him everything and they talk everything through, she's like, how are you out? And he says that he called on a bunch of favors he had from his colleagues at the university.
Mm-hmm.
And she wants to say, like, why didn't you do that at first? You had the ability to get out the whole time and you didn't. And she realizes it's because he didn't want his reputation to be hurt within those academic circles. And like, he manages to sort of make up for this. Like, he apologizes, but like, holy fuck, his ego wouldn't allow it until Hawk came and obliterated his entire worldview with all of the, consequences that happened for Belinda.
Yeah.
So he ends up staying at the inn in town, and Hawk has been making some moves in the background that he hasn't told Belinda about. There are like letters that we hear about, but nothing concrete.
Yeah, so Coldfell had lettered Hawk saying...
Had lettered him?
Yep, I said what I said.
I like it.
I
I like it. He lettered him right up is what he did.
I said what I said. I said what I said.
Up, down, and sideways.
So Coldfell lettered Hawk.
Yeah.
And said, hey, get ready. You can have my daughter. Like you can have this gigantic...
Political prize.
Oh my
You're going to
God.
do a big conference in politics in Vienna. You're going to be the cutest politic boy. You also have to marry my daughter, though. That was part of the deal. And so he's like, I'm cool with all of this, but I don't know how to tell Belinda.
So he has decided that he's going to go through with this. He's going to marry Jacinda's his sister. He's going to marry that Coldfell daughter, and he tells Belinda about what's happening because he wants her to come with him to Austria.
But
Yep.
he buries the lead hard. And this was the annoying part.
Yeah.
He's like, this amazing thing.
such a
It's all coming up, Hawk. It's so great. Look at the
Mhm.
flashing lights of success. And then she's like, wait, but if it's from Coldfell, there's got to be a catch.
And there is. And he tells her, she says, I'm done. I'm leaving. Like, this is over then.
This is my hard limit.
And so they have a argument, and she leaves.
Yeah.
She's done. She goes back to town. She grabs all of her stuff. She goes to Harriet and says, hey, I'm retiring. She has enough. Her dad's out of prison now, so she doesn't need the money for that. And she sells everything. And because she is a money smart lady, her money's just going to keep making money for her for the rest of time. And she has 150 pounds to live on, which is manageable. And she's going to be an independent woman.
And she just is going to have a simple life. And she says, that's what I wanted to begin with. I didn't want any of this bullshit.
And then I could have punched this dumb, swoony man in the face. Because he is the saddest potato for weeks. And then finally he's like, okay, I'm going to go talk to her. And so he goes and finds her, finds out that she's not a courtesan anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And when he gets to her house or her little apartment, he goes in and he has written her a carte blanche. He's like, I give you, come with me, be my mistress again, and you have carte blanche.
And she says, didn't Harriet tell you that I'm no longer a courtesan? And he's like, well, and she's like, Harriet had to have told you. And he's like, yeah, but it's not anybody else. I'm asking you.
But this is me asking, not Worcester or Leinster or God knows who. Surely you'll come back to me. I make you happy. Look around you, Robert. Does this look like a harlot's boudoir to you? Am I dressed in finery? No. Like, you have your Earl's daughter and your glorious name to comfort you. I'm just an ordinary woman now, living a private and independent life, and I happen to like it.
Yeah.
You don't need me anymore, and as you can see, I don't need you.
And he says,
but I do need you.
Yeah.
He uttered wretchedly.
Oh.
She held up the paper in a hand that trembles slightly. And this is how you show it? You offer to buy me? Whose idea was this? Coldfell's? And he says, take it, Belinda. Nothing I've won means a damned thing without you.
Uh-huh.
I am no longer willing to be anybody's whore, Robert. Not even yours. And then she tears that shit up and throws it in his face.
Uh-huh. It's hot. And then she goes to the door and opens it up and is like, I'm sure you can see yourself out. And he is on autopilot right now because he's in utter shock. And he's devastated.
And on his way out, she says, by the way, I'm to be married to Mickey Bravo in a fortnight.
Yeah.
Ooh, he's not...
Be happy for me because I'm engaged to Mick Bravo.
So then, listener, we have the world's most awkward interaction at Almec's. He's there to see his bride-to-be, and Coldfell is, like, tossing her on it. Also, we didn't talk about this earlier in the book, but he has this little, like, MP boy who is just, he's young, and he's ambitious, and he is in love with Coldfell's daughter.
Yeah.
Like, because he has, like, deaf family, and so it's not a problem. Like, it doesn't
he's
even
totally
register
comfortable
as a
with
thing.
it. There's no learning curve for him. And that's really nice.
And boy, he
comes to fuck shit up.
Hawk and, God, what is her name? Coldfell's daughter. Hawk and Coldfell's daughter.
Juliet.
Yes.
Does that sound right?
It does. So Hawk and Juliet are sitting on a bench in dead silence.
And they're just awkward turtles. Oh my God.
And then this boy walks up and he is drunk and he is mad.
Mm-hmm. He's got nothing to lose.
And he's like, how could you take the love of my life? What is wrong with you? Oh, Griffin. That's his name.
Yeah.
And he's like, I have secrets that I can't even blackmail her into being mine because I'm not that kind of asshole and I know the true blah. It's a whole thing. And then Hawk is like, whoa, hang on. So he takes Griffin outside and he's like, hey, buddy, I need you to tell me what happened. And then
explain it to me like I'm 5, please.
I needed it explained like I'm 5 too. I had to reread this part.
This was so nuts.
I was flabbergasted.
Because the whole time, I thought Coldfell had murdered her and then set up his nephew to take the fall, basically. Yeah, that's what I thought happened. No, that's not what happened. So apparently, Juliet got comfortable enough with Griffin over their, like, secret epistolary romance that she told him...
I want their novella.
I know. She told him everything that was on her heart. And the biggest thing is that, boy, did shit go down a few months ago with his former wife, because it turns out she was manipulating Dolph in order to kill Coldfell so that she would be free to marry the Duke, Hawk, and Dolph could, like, get his inheritance, right? So that's why Dolph set the fire. And then after that, Coldfell not only figured that out, but he also figured out all of the affairs she had been having. And so one night in the country, he decided to confront her about it. And apparently it got to this, like, knockdown, drag out fight. Remember, he's like a craggy old man and she is, like, you know, a woman in her prime. And so she's, like, swinging at him with a
A
with
poker?
a fire poker. I was going to say tire iron. That's not what it was. It is
Close
a
enough.
fire poker.
And Juliet goes to protect her dad and hits Lucy and knocks her out cold dead.
No. Just knocks her out unconscious.
Oh.
Then, because I was like, oh, good. Juliet's in the clear. She didn't actually kill her because she died of drowning. But then we find out that Coldfell convinced Juliet to drag this bitch outside to the pond.
And throw her in the pond.
And so
What?
Juliet's not in the clear, y'all.
Why? Okay, so why would you? Why was it necessary? Why was it necessary to do the secondary step of putting her in the pond?
Great question, Sabrina. Sabrina's asking amazing questions over there.
I read this like 3 times because I was like,
I was like, surely I'm wrong about this.
What?
Surely.
And like, I can't even blame Juliet because
No.
like she's the innocent. Justice for Juliet.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
Juliet does get justice because
She
after
gets
this,
justice.
Hawk is like, you know what? Up is down is up, good is bad,
I'm fucking done.
honorable is fucked up. Yeah, he's just like, I'm done. I'm flipping the table. I'm setting everything on fire. And so he's like, do you love Juliet? And Griffin's like, yeah, man. Have you not heard all of my speeches I've been making? And he's like, okay, I'm going to help you run away with her. So go down to this Romeo window that's in the courtyard.
This was amazing.
Why did he have to do this turns into a caper, okay? This turns into a
It is.
Shakespearean caper. Because he leaves this Romeo down in the courtyard. He goes back in, manipulates Coldfell to let him like take his bride and give her a stern talking to or something, and then takes her out into the the hallway right
Drops
by
her
this window.
off a balcony into her Romeo's arms.
Yeah. And then
Puts
he does
them
a cat
both-
burgle out of there too.
And then puts them both in his carriage, and he's like, William, to Gretna Green with haste!
As
and
fast
so
as you
he's-
can.
He's sending them off to get married in Gretna Green, and then Griffin's like, well, what about my horse? And fucking Hawk is like, I know what to do with your horse.
Yeah,
your
no
big,
worries.
beautiful white steed. We zippy zap.
Wait, really quickly. The only reason I'm stopping you is because it's my favorite line of the whole book. Griffin, this ginger-haired disaster, okay? He's been like, I want to give you my horse because you're so awesome. And he's like, no, just come get it at my house later. And then William has taken off and the team is barreling down this thing. And then Griffin sticks his head out the side of the window and he yells,
oh my God, this is
You've
so
got the
funny.
soul of a poet, Hawk.
And then, listener,
Now we zippy zap.
we zippy zap to Belinda has decided she is going to enjoy her fancy box at the theater until
right.
it is no longer available. And
Yeah.
so she and her father are at the theater, and in the middle of
Watching
the
like
play,
King Lear or something.
King Lear. In the middle of the play, there's a ruckus down on the ground.
Yeah.
And the door at the back of the stadium,
The theater.
yep.
The theater. It's during the death
slams
scene too.
open.
Yeah.
Slams open. And then fucking Hawk comes riding down the middle of the aisle on the stallion, and everyone's trying to grab him, and he makes the horse rear, and then he goes up to Belinda's box.
Which is a balcony boy.
And he looks at her and he says, I love you. And I can't believe, like, I want to be with you for the rest. And everyone in the audience is cheering. They're like, yeah, go. And she looks at her dad and she's like, Dad, what do I do? And oh my God, no, even before this, before he asks her to marry him, he looks at her dad and he says, Sir, do I have your permission to ask for your daughter's hand in marriage? And Mr. Hamilton is like, absolutely, son.
Kooky dad
you
for the
sure
win,
do.
you know?
And then he looks at Belinda and he's like, will you marry me?
Life isn't worth it without you. We'll take on the world and society together.
And she looks at her dad and she's like, what do I do? And he's like, you follow your heart.
That's right.
And so Belle looks at him and says, I will. The entire audience is cheering.
Roaring.
The people, the dude who's supposed to be dead, the actor that's supposed to be dead on stage is cheering. Like, everybody is all for it. And then Belle daringly climbed over the railing with a scandalous show of ankle that would have surely made the brazen Georgiana Hawkscliffe laugh. She took Robert's hand. He steadied her as she stepped down, gingerly lowering herself onto the horse behind him. He drew her hands around his waist. Put your arms around me, he whispered, and never let me go. I love you. At her joyous sob, she felt the rumble of his deep, tender laugh. Well, you'd better, Bonnie Blue, because this time our arrangement is permanent.
Whoa.
And then he gallops out the back of the theater. End book.
End book. Goodbye, book.
No epilogue.
Book
no.
done.
It's done.
Do we see more of them in book 2? Do we see, like, how they navigate society in book 2?
So not as far as I've seen, because somehow, even with all of this that has happened, they're in Austria.
Oh yeah. How is it not the epilogue then?
Because I know this from the second book.
Aha. Interesting.
They're in Austria. Mm-hmm.
He's still got that conference position situation.
He's still got that fancy conference position.
Mm-hmm.
God,
even as a possible Whig.
I want to know how he got it, because Coldfell was supposed to be how he got it, and I can promise you that Coldfell is not interested in being party to that after this whole...
I mean, it seems like what's his name has all the secrets he needs to put Coldfell in his place. Oh yeah, Coldfell?
I guess that is true.
Do you want me to tell everybody that you drowned your wife in the fucking pond? You did? You with your hands?
And you didn't have to. He literally, in this day and time, he could have literally gone into an insane asylum and be like, she tried to kill me, and then locked her up for the rest of her life. You didn't have, you really didn't have to drown her.
You didn't have to finagle your daughter into committing a murder.
Okay, so, like, this book, I was not expecting the last 50, because all of this happens in the last, like, 15% of the book. Like, it is just banana hammer.
It's
from
balls
85
to the wall.
100%.
Yes.
Like, it just goes from, because, like, we hit that, and you know what, Mel? We hit that, like, 71%, and I remember being like, how is there still 30% of this book? Because 71% was, like, right after the duel, when they're snuggling in bed together after all of that chaos. That's 71%, and I was like, how is there still 30% left?
We slayed the dragon.
And then Gaelen Foley said, hold your horses, hold your hat. Where
Hold my beer.
hands and legs inside the vehicle, please. We're about to fucking blast off. And I loved it.
I think I have to read book 2.
I loved this book start to finish. Like, I started reading it, and Gaelen Foley's voice, it was so evocative in certain parts. Like, the way that she wrote, I loved this book. And about halfway through, I did realize that I was, this was sending me down the rest of these books and probably picking back up Maiden Lane. And then now that I've started the second book and there's Spy Boys, I'm probably picking back up Spy Master. And really, this is just, I'm going to be in England times for a little while.
I love it. I love it.
No regrets.
All right. Sabrina, what is your lady love?
Boy, I have so many options. It is the day after my birthday weekend, and I had a fantastic 31st birthday this year.
Ooh.
But ultimately, what I am picking out of this is we went to the symphony, and
Okay.
it was wonderful. And then we got home. It was late. It was like 11:30, but Dustin and I both love board games, and so whenever he comes to visit, he always brings board games. And he had this board game that he was like, I bet Sabrina would love this. So he brought
Ooh.
it. It's called Fog of Love. And My Lady
Okay.
Love is the board game Fog of Love. It is a romance board game
Ooh.
played between two people. And basically, you end up building this little character with different, like, in order to quote unquote win the game, you're supposed to like hit certain stats with your character based on these cards that are picked. And like
Okay.
you end up going through these like scenes, like every card is a scene, and then you make decisions based on what benefits your stats, and then if both of you make the same choices, your relationship gets better. If you're at odds, it gets worse. You might end up breaking up by the end of the game.
What?
Or you might end up together forever. And there's a couple of like there's an expansion pack apparently out there for a paranormal romance version.
Okay.
It was so fucking fun.
Yeah.
Like, if it hadn't been 1:30 by the time we were done playing, I would have made us play every single... I wanted to play it over and over and over again.
I love it.
It was Fog of Love, y'all. It was so fun. It was so much fun. I can't even
Nice.
express how enjoyable it was. And if you're a romance lover and you like a board game, you should definitely check it out. Like, what a delight.
Yay.
What's your lady love, Mel?
My lady love is that I went to my basement today to check on all of my potential babies, okay? and and I got there's my first snapdragon seedling poking its little head up, and it's teensy tiny. I almost missed it because it's so small.
How long do you have to wait to be able to plant them all outside?
So snapdragons are a hardy annual, so they can go out a few weeks before your last frost usually, and then you just sort of have to watch the weather and maybe give them a little bit of protection if it's going to get under like I think something around 23 Fahrenheit or something like that. But otherwise, snapdragons and sweet peas, they both really love a cold period of growth. They need that in order to get the height and blooms that you want to see on them. So my first little snapdragon babe is out downstairs, and also a bunch of the dahlia tubers that I'm waking up that I thought were lost causes because like it was my first time dividing dahlia tubers. So I didn't know like if I got like all of the pieces that you need in order to make a successful dahlia tuber that will grow something. And a couple of them, they're just slow. They're just a little bit behind is all. And I'm seeing like little tiny sprouts that are coming up, and I'm waking them up because this is the way that you get more plants without spending money. Once they're big enough, these little sprouts that are coming off of the dahlia tuber, I'll pinch them off of there and then root that in its own thing. And then wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. I've got 2 plants of the same flower. And then over this season, that little sprout boy will make its own tuber goodness. So things are great over here.
Listener, I wish you could see Melody's face. Melody has full mad scientist eyes, and the best part of it is that, like, I can hear you just fine, Mel, but it is, like, snapshots of video, because your video is sucking for me.
Uh-huh.
And so it's just snapshot of, like, crazy eyes in one position, then, like, crazy eyes in another position, then laughter, and, like, you...
It's good. It's good.
Frankly, delightful.
Good shit's happening over here. Yeah. So I'm
You're a
looking.
little mad scientist.
We just had like the biggest snowstorm and it's been so fucking cold, but I can go down and up here I decided to make another seed starting station because why not? And so up here I've seeded some sweet peas and some eucalyptus because I'm going to grow eucalyptus. I'm doing an experiment to grow eucalyptus as an annual so that I can have it as like bouquet fillers.
So you're really leaning into the mad scientist thing.
I don't know about that. It's a pretty.
You literally just said you're doing an
standard-
experiment.
Yeah, I've never grown eucalyptus before, so that's what I'm doing. And oh god, I'm so excited. So anyway, first sprout, a bunch of dahlia babies are down there, and it turns out I'm not terrible at dividing tubers. Who knew?
Yeah, I could have guessed. I could have guessed that if there was anything that you were going to succeed at the first time you tried it, it was going to be plant related. You know, like I just kind of consider you my plant person, you
Sabrina,
know?
that's the nicest thing you've ever said to me.
Wow.
That
Wow.
like, that warms my heart in every cockle, you know?
Uh-huh.
All of them. Maybe
The
twice
nicest.
over.
That's the nicest thing I've ever said to you.
That was a really sweet thing to say.
You are my plant person.
Oh, wow. Anyway.
Wow. Now I know how to, like, if she's having a shit day, I'm just gonna, like, ask her a plant question and let her go and be like, wow, I'm so glad I have a plant person to talk to. My plant person.
Yeah, okay. All right, everybody. Keep being a badass.
Love yourself as much as you love what essentially turned out to be like 3 books in one.
Yeah. Yeah. Love yourself as much as you love the climactic end of a book happening at 71% and then not knowing what the fuck is going to happen after that.
Oh my God. Love yourself as much as you love a grand gesture. Love yourself as much as you love a man coming into the theater on horseback.
On a white horseback.
Ride off into the sunset with you.
Yeah. Keep being a badass and love yourself as much as you love looking forward to a possible book 2 orgy. That's something I learned about today. I don't know.
Possible.
All right.
Hypothetically.
Keep being a badass and love yourself as much as you love maybe being able to lick your own nipple.
Maybe being able to suck your own nipple.
Who knows? You gotta try it and find out.
You gotta give it a shot.
It's person to person. You know, it's bazumba to bazumba.
It is bazumba to bazumba. You need a certain gravitational pull, but guess what, listener? Hypothetically, you will not know unless you give it a shot.
That's right. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us again this week. Next week, we'll be back with Dark Fever by Karen Marie Monning with a special guest. Heaving Bosoms is produced by us, Melody Carlisle and Sabrina Bradley. Editing is done by me, Melody Carlisle. Our theme music is by the incredible singer-songwriter Brittany Fonts, and our art is by the ultra-talented author Kate Pryor. If you like our show, remember to follow us on your favorite podcast app, rate us 5 stars, and leave a review. That one small action is a huge way to help the show. If you want to get in touch with us for advertising inquiries or anything else, you can email us at heavingbosomespodcast@gmail.com. If you want more of us, visit patreon.com/heavingbosomespodcast. You can also find us on Instagram at Heaving Bosoms, on TikTok at Heaving_Bosoms, and in our Facebook group, the Heaving Bosoms Geriatric Friendship Cult. See you then.
This episode brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Shifting a little money here, a little there, and hoping it all works out? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can get a better budgeter and potentially lower your insurance bill too. You tell Progressive what you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll help find you options within your budget. Try it today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.